Hello, and thank you for joining me again today on the Finding Hope After Loss podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like the show, please leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a moment and really helps the show reach more lost and infertility families. I wanted to let you know that I am putting together both an ornament exchange and a card exchange for lost parents. If you are interested in participating in either, you can email me at sarah@journeyforjasmine.com or see any of the posts on my social media accounts at Journey for Jasmine. Today I am talking with David. He lost his son Charlie when he was stillborn due to a true knot in his umbilical cord. In this episode, David talks about starting the Charles Martin Corvi Foundation to help other loss organizations. He also talks about the letters he started writing to his son that he later turned into a book.
Hello, everyone. Today I am here with David. David, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name's David Corvi. I am the father of Charlie, Charles Martin Corvi. My wife and I lost Charlie in October of 2021. He was stillborn as a result of a true knot in his umbilical cord. And since then, my wife and I have started the Charles Martin Corvi Fund, which raises money for pregnancy and infant loss, like a number of wonderful organizations out there, and we then gift that money to the organizations who are doing the work, doing the amazing work, and providing the services. So specifically, we focus on remembrance and grief and research and advocacy. So any organizations or health organizations, nonprofits that are doing that work, that's who we're looking to support through Charlie's Fund.
I think that's amazing. What inspired you? I mean, obviously the loss of your son, but like what kind of led to you creating this?
Well, yeah, I feel like many other people, you're searching for meaning making and purpose, trying to answer the question of why, why us? Why did this happen? Why now? And just through a series of, as we call them, Charlie winks, we got connected to, there's a local community foundation right here in the town we live in. My cousin who lives in the town as well, the following year said, "Hey, do you want to run a relay marathon and name it in Charlie's memory?" And he's like, we could exercise and work out and keep it in our mind. And then those two things kind of came together simultaneously. We were introduced to the foundation and we ran the marathon. And so we're like, let's just raise money this first time. And we ended up raising over $25,000. And yeah. And so then we were like, well, maybe this is, maybe this is our meaning making. Maybe this is our purpose. Maybe this is Charlie's legacy, the impact that he can have and support other families who also experience this kind of loss. And so it went from there. Charlie's birthday is coming up in a few weeks. He would have been 3 years old. And so after the marathon, we decided, hey, we'll try to do our own event. So we have an event, Charlie's Challenge, every year in September. So we did our first one last year, and we just had our second one this past September as well. So that's kind of how this fund and Charlie's impact was rolling.
I love that. I think that's just amazing. And I think, we all look for ways to still parent our children after they're gone. And I think this is, this is exactly that, just finding ways to parent them and keep their memory alive and keep their legacy alive.
Yeah, like this podcast, right? Like you're doing here, and like I said, putting yourself out there and remembering the child that you lost.
Do you find it hard to talk about him and to share your story?
It's always difficult. I think, just male brain, right? Like my initial reaction when we lost Charlie was to, just kind of move on and like keep it inside and push it aside. And so I think, I'm not, my wife is the psychologist. She's the brain person. But I think men's brains are just wired to to navigate things differently. And so I find it more therapeutic and a little more relieving to talk and just to share and talk about him. And as you said, like, you parent your other kids, you attend their games and their activities, and you talk about them. And I think I've just come to the realization of why wouldn't I talk about Charlie, right? We have three living boys, and we talk about them and interact with them every day and go to their events. And so, this is our way to talk about Charlie, to communicate with him and to parent him through his fund, through the letters that I wrote in the book, and through the other events that we attend, in his honor and his memory.
When did you start writing letters to him?
The first letter is dated December 2021. I wrote letters to, so we have two older living boys, and then we have our rainbow baby who's about 22 months now. And I wrote letters to our two older boys when my wife was pregnant with them. I've just been a writer. I've journaled. That's how I've processed information. That's how I've communicated the most and the best. And so I had written them letters while my wife was pregnant with them to give them at later dates. And I just never wrote Charlie any letters during pregnancy when my wife was pregnant with him, because of life with two kids and everything. And then it was in December, it was a few months after he had passed, that my wife was like, you didn't write any letters to him. Do you think that might help? And so we got his Christmas stocking one day, and that kind of served as like just the catalyst for me to sit down that evening and write. And then it just kind of went from there. And it was every few weeks, or whenever I was thinking about him, or I was awake at 2 a.m. thinking about him. So it was around that time. And then it was probably about 6 months later, like that spring, where I had about 9 letters. And then I was like, oh, maybe this could help other people processing a similar loss. And so then it kind of went from there to try to get them published.
How long after that were you able to get it published?
So the book just released September 1st this year, so just about a month ago. I had met a grandfather of a baby. Their organization was Miles Mission. I don't know if you've met them yet.
I haven't, but I've heard of them.
Yes, they're amazing, amazing family. They're out of Zanesville, Ohio. And he wrote a book and used a publishing organization to write his book last year. And so he and I met and had lunch, and he gave me a copy of his book, and he introduced me to the publishing company. So that was last January. So the process, from start to finish was, yeah, it was about 9-10 months. Fittingly, I never even made that connection.
It's always kind of funny when you look back on stuff and you're like, oh, wow, that seems like more than a coincidence,
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit about your book? Like, what's it called, where people can get it, and what all
Yeah.
in it?
I'm also open to reading a letter if your
Sure.
listener, if you think
Yeah,
your
that'd be
listeners
great.
would like that. So the name is, I'm showing this to you. Everybody's not gonna be able to see this though. The name is Dear Charlie. It's letters to my son, father's journey of loss, grief, and remembrance. And I will, for October, through website, it's on sale. It's like on discount, everything for pregnancy and infant loss month. So I'll make sure that you have that link and everything, and you can share out. But it's available through any bookstore. It's available on Amazon. So it's pretty much mass distributed at this point. We're just hoping for it to snowball and get some traction. I think the easiest thing to do would be maybe to read I wrote a letter to the reader at the beginning, which gives kind of like a high level, again, how the book came about and what it's about and everything. And so maybe that might pique some people's interest to check it out and pick up a copy. And a percentage of the profits go back towards the Charles Martin Corvi Fund and support families. And again, that's just one piece that we're hoping fuels his legacy. And I have in the works to do an audiobook as well. So that would be available. Okay, so this is dear reader. So this is like one of the introductions, and my wife wrote another introduction. Our son Charles Martin Corvi was stillborn on October 26, 2021. He was 15 days shy of his due date. Charlie is not here to tell his own story, so we must do it for him. This is Charlie's story. Dear Charlie is a series of letters I wrote to my third son. Talking to him has helped keep him close to my heart and supported me through my own grief. The letters serve as a record of this traumatizing event for our family, a celebration of all he is to us and our world, and the journey through my own grief. Men grieve differently than women. There is no right or wrong way, it is just different. I grieve by doing, which helps me try to make sense of this awful tragedy that occurred. Will I ever find an answer? Probably not. This is how I process my grief and the loss, both of which are a part of me now. Disclaimer: the emotions and thoughts I describe in these letters are my own. They are the raw emotions and real thoughts of a father grieving the death of his child. They are not intended to offend, criticize, or blame. If that happens, I apologize in advance. The letters were written in real time during the year after Charlie died. They conclude on his first birthday. This is not to illustrate that grief follows a timeline and is finite. It doesn't and is not. People will experience varying lengths and depths of emotions at different times. I've learned many things from Charlie, most notably that grief is never ending. It rolls over our family like the coming and going of the tide, day in, day out, week in, week out. Some days it comes crashing down on us with tremendous force. On other days, it ripples softly over us. It's been more than 2 years since Charlie died, and I still experience whirlwinds of emotions that change before I can get used to them. I've met parents who are decades into the journey of loss and grief, and their anger and disbelief are palpable. You will notice multiple emotions weaving through each letter. A letter may start with anger and frustration, touch on disbelief and denial, and conclude with what feels like gratitude. This is completely normal too. Grief is messy and complex. Charlie has taught us two things can be true. We can miss him and be sad while also celebrating the incredible impact he has on our family and others who've experienced pregnancy or infant loss. Lastly, the biggest comfort and support through our grief has been the opportunity to connect with others who have experienced the similar loss of a child, a greater number than there ever should be. I hope sharing Charlie's story will help others on their own path of loss, grief, remembrance, and healing. You are not alone.
I love that. I think one of the important things is just the emotions and how, like you said, that, a letter can start out angry and then it can show sadness and then it can show happiness. And it's like, I think it just really shows truly what it's like after loss, that we're not just sad like the whole time, like we're angry,
Mm-hmm.
where we feel guilty sometimes, we feel scared sometimes, we feel hopeful sometimes. Like there's just all these different things all rolled into one, and then they kind of just all hit you at once.
Yeah, like kind of just depends on the day and when you wake up and or just like anything else in life, anything that's going on, or if you had a bad night of sleep, or if you had an argument with your spouse or your kids or whatever is going on, right? And you're right. Like the emotions, they come and go, just like anything else, and that's one thing we're just specifically I have learned as a father and as a man is like you know just feeling those things and just as I said, kind of like riding the wave and accepting that is how you're going to feel that day. And and again, as I said, my initial reaction was to not want to feel it, to fight it, but with the support of our community and our family and our friends and my wife and our living boys, they've all helped me realize that these are things that I need to feel.
I think it's definitely easier because I know I did a lot of that too at first. Like, just let's just stuff it down so we don't have to deal with it. Like, 'cause I was
Yeah,
tired of being sad all the time. I mean,
yeah.
and I was just like, I'm just gonna go back to work. I'm just gonna be normal. And I'm like, yeah, that was probably not a good idea. But
Did you have a feeling that like my wife often described this like she just felt like there was like a dark cloud like kind of hanging
yeah,
over us. Did you have that feeling?
yeah, it did feel like that. And that's a good way to describe it. It just felt like everything, and even now. she would have been 6 this year, so it's been several years for us, but
Yeah.
it still feels like there's a lot of normal things that still have that cloud over them. Taking family pictures, sending the kids to school, like things like that, that there should be one more there.
Yeah. The other thing I was wondering too is like with the dark cloud, then do you feel like this is a topic that I was just at with the Sad Dads Club we were talking about in terms of like how other people view you? Like, do you feel that like people tiptoe around you, or there was like a dark cloud, or there was like a stigma around, like, oh, like we're gonna talk to Sarah, make sure we don't.
Yeah, definitely with some people. Like when I went back to work, I worked for a small company at the time. It was
Mm,
just 4 of us, and one was part-time. So it was basically 2 men that I worked with, and
mm,
I was the only woman there at the time. And yeah, it just felt kind of awkward coming back. Like they didn't know how to handle me. They're
yeah,
just kind of
yeah,
like, they're like, well, you didn't have to come back so soon. I'm like, well, I don't have paid time off to like take all this time off,
mm,
But but yeah, no, I definitely know what you mean. They were just kind of like the way they would look at me, the way they would talk to me, it was just kind of like, yeah, okay, this is awkward. I don't know what to do here. So
yeah,
yeah, I have experienced that some.
yeah, yeah. Maybe it's just we all need just training and just being compassionate. Maybe that's just more what it is. Like, right, just follow your gut, follow your compassion, and whatever you say will be okay
Yeah,
instead
it's
of
kind of like,
avoiding.
would you avoid it if somebody lost a parent or a
Yeah,
sibling or no, you wouldn't. So like, let's just treat it the same way. Like it's
yeah,
it's still a
yeah.
family member.
My wife's big thing was, again, she's a doctor, and she works in like her healthcare system and everything, and they were wonderful. Again, like I said, like these are just our experiences and our response as parents who lost a child. But everybody was wonderful. Her medical team and her care team and everything. But the one thing that was kind of like a kind of a punch to the gut was like they removed her parental leave, so she still had the maternity leave, but she didn't get the additional 4 weeks of parental leave. And I mean, it was just like, and then the way it was handled, it was more kind of like a human error, faux pas. The person just like communicated to her in like email and everything, and she was like,
Like what?
"What?" Yeah, she was like, so
Yeah.
she talked to people and like HR and did like all that stuff and everything, and like they took the feedback and everything, but just in terms of awareness and policies and things that are in place for this, like you're still like she was still recovering from childbirth, you know so
That's what I think people don't understand. Like it's not like we just when you're that far along, we were 32 weeks. So, I gave birth. I
yep,
had to go through postpartum just like your wife. And, people don't understand, like you said, we still have to recover whether the baby's here or not. We still
yeah,
have the same recovery. And then we have the emotional grief on top of it. And like we don't need to be dealing with HR issues, like
right,
at that time.
yeah,
Like that's just one more thing you're adding on.
yeah, yeah,
And making it seem like your baby's not a real baby because they weren't born alive. Like that doesn't, so you don't get the
right.
parental leave. Like that doesn't.
I mean, that was like the message that she got. It was like, oh, I don't have a baby, so I'm not a parent, like I'm not a new parent. That was essentially her interpretation. So yeah, hopefully, like through all this right amazing work that you're doing and we're doing, and a number of other people who experience this are doing, can change the conversation, can change decisions that are made, can change how people interact. And again, this is right, Dear Charlie, the book is just one avenue to hopefully to do that, and we'll kind of take off. And because maybe your two coworkers could have, they they could have benefited from reading
Maybe I
this.
should still send it to him now. Like, hey, this would have been
Yeah,
helpful like 6 years ago, just
there you
FYI.
go. There you go. Yeah.
But no, I do think it's great that you put it out there and that you're willing to share that because talking about our emotions and talking about our losses, it can be a very vulnerable thing and it can be really hard to put it
Hmm.
out there and to share it with people. And I know sometimes, especially more as men, like you said. So just thank you for, being willing to put that out there for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, thank you for the opportunity to share this. And as you were talking a little bit about your experience, like rightfully, and I think I say this a lot, I just rightfully so, right? You carry Jasmine, right? My wife carried Charlie, like that, like my wife still continues to take the brunt of it, right? And the mother will. And I think that is definitely something for fathers to, one, check themselves on, and at the same time, we need to process this too, right? Like we need an outlet, an adaptive, healthy outlet, right? And I'm just thankful for my wife and for our relationship. And again, I know that that's not always the case. I understand that stillbirth impacts couples differently, and unfortunately, but yeah, my wife and I tell people, and we're like, we're sealed. We're we're lockstep now. Like if we were before, but now we're so much more now.
Yeah, I felt
And
the
that's a
same
gift
way.
and that's a gift from Charlie, right? And it's again tragedy and unfortunate. It's horrible, this experience, and especially everything that she went through, right? And you said like you had to actually deliver Jasmine, but it's another gift from Charlie. Yeah. You were saying you feel the same way.
Oh yeah, yeah. We after loss, like that just I know for some people it can tear them apart, but for us we had the same thing. Like we were close before, but it just brought us closer because me and my husband, because we just experienced like the worst thing you could ever experience together. And yeah, we were able to, although we grieved differently, we were still able to grieve together. And that can be hard because people do grieve differently. Some people want to talk, some people don't want to talk. And then sometimes
Yeah.
the one who doesn't want to talk, it may seem like, well, they don't care because they don't want to talk. And it
Yeah.
can spiral, but
Yeah. We were just at a remembrance walk on Saturday morning, and we had a resource table there as well, and we were selling some copies, and a couple came by, and their son they lost had just happened to be Charlie as well. He was a twin, and the wife was talking with us and interacting with us, and she was like, "Oh, this is great and everything," and she like had the copy of the book in her hand, and she looked to her husband, and she was like, "Do you want to get one?" And he didn't even say anything. He just shook his head like, "No." He's like, mm-mm. So 10 minutes later, she came back around by herself, and she was like, I'm gonna get this. I'm just gonna put it on the nightstand. And she's like, maybe he'll pick it up and read it. And I was like, maybe he will. Like, like he's clearly, he's navigating this, in his own way, and you have to respect that. So yeah.
but I do love that she came back and bought
I
it.
just love that. I got it. My wife got a kick out of it too. She's like, "Oh, you're back." She's like, "I'm just gonna get this."
Sometimes it's okay to give a little nudge, right? Or just
Yeah,
at least present the opportunity. Like if they take it, great. If not, maybe they're just not ready. Maybe later.
yeah, yeah.
So right after your loss, were there any resources that you found particularly helpful?
Yeah, I mean, so the school that I attended here in Ohio for high school has a pretty strong community, strong alumni base. And the so we just got connected immediately with a couple who had lost their first son. Well, it'd be 21 years now because Charlie would be 3, so he would have been 8. Their son would have been 18 3 years ago, so it'd be 21 years now. And that probably we met with them at a coffee shop 3 days after Charlie passed away. Charlie passed away on Monday. I think we met them on Thursday. That probably, and our families were here, siblings were here, and everything, and that probably was like the single-handed, like most beneficial thing and helpful thing for us that soon. And right, like you're sitting there talking with people who get it,
Mhm.
you know, and as compassionate as you can. It's kind of like people who talk about being parents before they're parents, right? It's like, you get it, but you don't get it. And yeah, I mean, and you talked about the feelings. I mean, this dad, I referenced him in the intro that I just read. it was 18 years from then, and he was still as angry and upset as the day that they lost Joseph. And like, so but that was helpful. And I said that like just like the community of people. Again, we were at the Remembrance Walk on Saturday. We have Christmas Box, Angel of Hope. Are you familiar with the Christmas Box by Richard Paul Evans, the
I
book?
don't think so.
That was just another resource to have. But it tells the story of a mother who lost her daughter, and she goes and grieves by her grave marker, which is this angel statue. So people started asking the author where this angel statue was, and he had just made it up. But there was maybe kind of this like myth of it in Salt Lake City in Utah. So he commissioned a statue back in 1994, and now there's like 120 of them
Oh,
in
wow.
children's cemeteries all over the country. And there happens to be one 8 minutes from our house. So I'm on that committee there. So we were just there yesterday, and we met several other people there. And I met Lindsay on Saturday's walk and everything, and she knows you and everything. So just like I think the most beneficial thing and the most helpful thing is just to meet with people who've experienced this, who are willing, because they can one let you know you're not alone. So you're not crazy, you're not alone, you're not like, and you're not going through this by yourself. Your feelings and your emotions are real, and they're completely normal. That's probably the biggest thing that was helpful for us, was just being connected with this community.
Yeah, I think you're right that, family and friends, they're supportive and they try to understand, but if they haven't been through it, they can't possibly fully understand as much as they try. And it's great. Obviously, we want their support, but yeah, just being able to talk with people who do just get it without you even having to say or explain it is just
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. And that was another catalyst for Charlie's Fund. Is my wife and I were seeking a support group, and we were out. It was the first night we went out to dinner after Charlie died, just her and I. And then we were going to go to the support group, and we got to the location and nobody was there. And we kind of like looked around. We called our therapist who had referred us there and everything. And so what ended up happening was it went virtual through COVID, and there wasn't any information on the website or anything like that. And so my wife and I were driving home, and we were just like, kind of in shock. Like, we put ourselves out there, we went to go find this group and everything, and we weren't able to access it. And then we were like, well, here we are, we're two educated, privileged people who have the means, right, to do this. And we were like, what about people who don't? We were, like, what about like the single mother who, you know, leaves the hospital without her baby, and people who have gaps and holes in their support system. And so a big part of Charlie's fund is providing funds so that families can be relieved of any kind of like financial burden, so that they can have access, right? So that they can just have access to their grief and they can process losing a baby. They don't need to be worrying about, groceries and rent and, fuel and anything, right? If they need to take an extra 4 weeks off because their employer didn't give it to them, then we're there for it.
No,
Charlie's there for you.
I think that's amazing that you're doing that. And yeah, there's so many financial concerns that, we deal with on a daily basis. And then even more that can come from, those hospital bills that we still have to pay, even though we didn't get to bring our baby home, or, the PTO that we don't get to take. And so I think that's amazing that you're there to help fill in those gaps.
Yeah. Yeah. And funeral costs, right? Like we were sitting there, we were just incredibly lucky to be connected with a funeral home whose policy was, you lose a baby, you don't pay. And that's their policy. And I recently spoke to the director and the owner just a few months ago, and to circle back, because we wanted to give money so that it could offset some costs. And he was like, we don't need it. He was like, it's already calculated into like our budget. He's like, we will never charge a family who loses a baby like that. And we were just fortunate enough to have that happen, right? And we've been called directly from other hospitals and asking to if we can donate money and offset funeral costs for people, because that's something that people have to consider and have to think about. And then you don't, and that's a financial burden. And then you don't have time to grieve because you're stressed and anxious about this. So
Yeah, and I've seen so many people like, later on who said, oh, I couldn't afford to get a headstone, or I couldn't afford to, do these things. And they're trying to, get the money for it later. And then they feel guilty because they weren't able to do it. And it's just like, I hate that people are in that position in the first place.
yeah, absolutely.
We were actually fortunate, just like you, that our funeral, we had her cremated. So that was
Mm-hmm.
all completely covered for us. And we never got a bill from the hospital. Like, everything was all taken care of. And that's one of those things I'm forever grateful for.
Yeah,
But I know
absolutely.
not everybody has that happen.
Yeah.
So are there any particular like signs or symbols that you think of for Charlie, or like signs that he's sending you?
Well, this is his logo is
Oh, I love that.
on this fund. So again, for everybody, it's the stillbirth awareness pink and blue ribbon. The chimes are specific because and these are all written about in the letters. The chimes, actually, the family who we bought our current house from, we've stayed in touch with, and they sent us these. They're like 4 feet tall. They like stand on the ground, and they're in our back now. So we call them the Charlie chimes, and they sent them to us the week after his funeral. And then I have again my cardinal for Charlie.
I love that. That's beautiful.
So, and the cardinal is on the logo as well. So those are, yeah, I mean, those are kind of the big ones. The cardinal, especially, and my sister does all of like our social media and stuff, and she's phenomenal at it. And she just found a song called Red Bird this morning that she like put to the music of one of the posts from this morning or anything. And the song specifically talks about a cardinal. And we're like, oh,
Wow. You're like, it's perfect. It was meant to be.
that was great. Yeah. Yeah. So I think those are probably the two biggest things. And then our living boys are always just dropping knickknacks and things. We had Charlie cremated as well, and he's here with us. We didn't know where to. We don't have any family that are like nearby buried or anything like that. So we were like, he's gonna stay with us for a little bit here until we kind of figure out, something else. But they're always just like they're dropping Matchbox cars and Dum Dums and anything that you can think of. They Hershey Kisses during the holidays and stuff like that. They just like leave by his urn. So it's really sweet.
I love that. That is the cutest thing.
And that's that mix of emotions, right? You're like, oh, this is so sweet, and you're like feeling nice and good about his brothers taking care of him, and then in the same moment, I'm so angry and upset, right? That's how they have to interact with him. It's just this. It's so messy.
Yeah, it really is. That's like the biggest way to describe, dealing with loss is just the messiest thing you could go through. Like, all this emotion all like jumbled together. And yeah, like what you said earlier, you never know how you're gonna feel that day when you wake up. It's like, we'll just see how this day goes. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Oh yeah.
So how old were you had two that were born before Charlie?
Yeah, we had two that were older. William was 5 at the time. William was 5. Alexander was 3 at the time, and William William got it. I include them in the letters, and so the letters more so also like they're telling Charlie about us. So there's really like a whole letter and maybe like 2 letters that are like, Charlie, let me tell you about your brothers type thing, right? Like the ways that I've said like they leave things by his urn and stuff. And William, the August before, when my wife was pregnant with Charlie, like like any 5 year olds, he started asking questions about death. And I hope I took them in stride, and and did a nice job of just helping him kind of navigate his thoughts and everything. And And then, you know, 2 months later, Charlie died. And it was almost like, right when you said before, like in hindsight and you're looking back, it's like, oh, wow, are all of these things happening, in preparation, right? And so, like, I felt much more prepared coming home and having that conversation with William and Alexander the day Charlie died and when we came home from the hospital because I had been having these conversations with William for 2 months before. And I talk about that in one of the letters. So, again, just as a resource, like, you know, I described the story that we told to William. I described how we told him and Alexander, and William got it. Like, he's the oldest. His verbal ability and his language is beyond as the first child and everything, and so he got it. Alexander, it didn't click right away. He was up until about a year ago. He still thought Charlie got hit by a truck, which he did tell
I don't
the
mean to
boys.
laugh, but
No, no, no. I mean, again, it's humor's okay as well, right? Like, it's okay, and they're both in grief therapy as well. And they go to a grief camp, an amazing grief camp at Cornerstone of Hope here in Independence, Ohio, and they go see a therapist every month. And the therapist came out about 6 months ago, and she was like, Alexander thinks that Charlie got hit by a truck. She was like, have you guys like talked to him specifically about what has happened? And we're like, we have. And she was like, you might want to just sit him down and talk to him again. So we were like, okay, we need to do that. But Alexander is great. I mean, when he was 3, we call him the mayor because he will just talk to anybody. And he's like getting his hair cut the week after Charlie died, and he's just talking to he's talking to the woman cutting his hair, and he's just like, we have a baby and he died. And the woman's like, oh, okay. And
okay.
it's just, yeah, she didn't really know how to respond or anything. I was just like, and again, it's the sweetest thing. It's the most wonderful thing. They're taking care of Charlie. They're taking care of their little brother. And then, it's also at the same time just heart wrenching. Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter started kindergarten this year and we took her to the first day of school, like to meet her teacher and all that. And, she's talking to her teacher and then all of a sudden she just throws out there, like, I actually have 2 sisters, but one died. It's just like, well, all right. And the teacher's like, oh, like that look. And I'm like, it's true. It's true. Like,
Yes.
she's not making it up. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of that like awkward because you weren't prepared to like talk about it in that particular moment. But
Hmm.
but it's also, kind of good that they just tell it like it is.
Yeah. Yeah. You wonder, a mother that I met yesterday, her daughter would be 6. I think she was in 2017. Is that when you said you lost?
2018. So
2018. Right around there. And it's like, then you wonder, and Alexander just said it the other day. He was like, I wonder what Charlie would look like now, So you like wonder these things.
yeah, I definitely wonder. We were talking about how my 2 oldest look like they could be twins when they were born. They look exactly alike. And then my youngest daughter, she looks like them but different.
Yeah.
And then it made me again wonder, like, well, how would Jasmine look? Like, would she look like the other 2? Would she look more like this
Yeah.
one? Like, it's just all these like unanswered questions we always have to live with.
So your oldest, or your second now is in kindergarten, you said, just started kindergarten?
And then the other one's in 5th grade. So I have 10-year-old, a 5-year-old, and then the 21-month-old. And
Oh,
then,
so you have 3 okay, you
yeah,
have 3
3
living. So
living. Yeah.
okay, so Jasmine's number 2 would
Yes.
have been second. Got it.
Yeah.
All girls.
One boy. The oldest is a boy.
Oh,
The rest are girls.
got it.
He's like, another sister.
That's funny. You can send one our way because our boys want a sister. They're
Yeah,
like,
do they?
can we have a sister? Like, I think we're that. I mean, yeah. So, like, how the pregnancies after Jasmine, then how were they for you? I mean, they were just,
Yeah, it was just one big ball of anxiety. The
yeah,
whole time. Yeah, it
yeah,
was terrifying. It's one of the scariest things I've ever done. And then
yeah,
I'm like, why did I do it again? I don't know.
yeah,
Technically, Jasmine was also a pregnancy after loss because I had 2 early losses. They were so early, like we never saw a heartbeat or anything. Definitely. So her pregnancy was scary, but then the pregnancies after, like losing her at 32 weeks, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's like there is no safe point. And they always make you think like you make it past first trimester, you're safe, nothing's gonna happen. Then it does, and you're like, well, crap, nothing's safe, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, my wife similarly, Louis, our youngest, he's our 22-month-old now, and that was very scary for her. And that's when the boys are like, we have a sister, and we're like, my wife is like, I'm done. Like
Yeah, yeah, that's how
I'm
I
good.
felt. Like I can't do it
She
anymore.
would, yeah, I mean, and she would though. It's unfortunate because she was like, just loving on babies, but she's just like, and I'm with her. I'm like, to put yourself through that again with knowing what we know, like, yeah.
Yeah. And also I feel, I don't know if this is something you guys feel too, but I feel like I could just forever keep having babies, but that even if I did, like my family would never feel complete because she's
Oh
not
yeah.
here. So it's
Yeah.
like I feel like you want more because you want to like fill that void, but you can never fill that void.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting that you said that because I used to say that before Charlie. So when it was just William and Alexander, and we were talking and considering, trying to have another baby, I would say to my wife, I was like, in 30 years, like when the boys are coming home, I was like, it's gonna feel like somebody's not here, like we're missing somebody. And then I told Charlie that in one of his letters, and I was like, now, like, somebody is missing, and you will always be missing. Yeah. Yep.
So before we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to share or add?
I'll probably think of something later.
That's always the best time, the next day when,
Yeah.
oh, all these things I could have said.
I will just send you a soundbite and you can just add it
Yeah, exactly.
in. No, Sarah, I just thank you, right? Like, thank you for the space, and again, there's so many of us out there that are doing amazing, wonderful things, and I'm just thankful for the opportunity and the time to talk about Charlie and talk to somebody else who gets it. And again, like, I've been kind of plugging different groups and flowering different groups and everything, but I'll go back to the Sad Dads Club with Rob. Like, I've been to a couple of those on Thursdays, and they're just amazing spaces. Like, I cannot get over. I mean, I told my wife the next morning, like, I was still like reeling from it the next morning of just how powerful that space is. So thank you and thank Jasmine for, connecting us and putting us together, and you putting yourself out there every time you talk to somebody. I appreciate it.
Well, and I want to thank you so much for all that you're doing as well. I mean, you're doing amazing things for the lost community. I think we all just try to turn our pain into something that can help other people, and we all do it in a little bit different way, but they're all amazing, I think. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm still waiting on like a larger order of author copies. So I definitely want to send you a copy. So I'll get your mailing address and make sure that I get you a copy.
yeah, I definitely love to read it. I look forward to reading it. Probably just cry through the whole thing because that's what I do. But
There's a dad here that's on this angel statue committee. He texted me and he's like, I couldn't even get through the first page.
it's hard. I mean, because sometimes it just takes you right back to all that emotional stuff. But sometimes it's good to get it out,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
though a lot of times we don't want to. Like, let's just stuff it in. I don't want to do
I
it.
know. And those days are okay too. Those days are okay. My wife's therapist, she actually, here's a line for everybody. She was like, Charlie might need a babysitter. Maybe he needs a babysitter for a night. Again, it's the similar thing, like you parent your children, right? And she was like, this time of year is a lot. And she's like, after his birthday, she's like, I think it's okay that if he just has a babysitter for a little bit, like, it's okay. And parents need that. And
I love that.
moms and
I
dads need
love
that.
that line. It's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So if people wanted to connect with you, are you on social media or anything or have a website?
Yep. Facebook, you can just search the Charles Martin Corvi Fund. Instagram is Charles M. Corvi. And his website is charlesmartincorvi.org. you can get the link to our email address on there and just connect with us on there and connect with us on social media. Just shoot us a message or anything. Just always looking to, expand this network and this reach and this impact that all of our babies are having. So if there's anybody who wants to chat more, especially dads, if there's any dads listening or out there, or moms and your husbands, you want to just put the book on their nightside table. Yeah.
I'll just leave this here.
Yeah. What's
Well,
this?
again,
They'll pick it up.
I want to thank you so much for coming on today and talking with me and sharing your story.
All right. Thanks, Sarah. It was great.
Thank you so much, David, for sharing your story with us and for all the work that you are doing to help other lost families. As we talked about, I think going through loss is a constant roller coaster of emotions. One moment we may feel angry at the world, and the next we're just feeling so much sadness. Or maybe we're feeling guilty about the loss one minute and feeling happiness the next. Yes, it is okay to feel happiness and joy and all of those positive feelings again after loss. Sometimes we feel it somehow dishonors our baby or that we're, quote, moving on from them. You aren't moving on. You're just learning how to carry your grief with you. I personally believe our babies don't want us to be sad the rest of our lives. They know just how much we love them and how much we continue to love them. We continue to parent them even after they are gone. We continue to share their story and include them in our lives. There is no right or wrong way to feel after loss. Whatever you are feeling is the exact right thing to be feeling in that moment. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like the show, please leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a moment and really helps the show reach more lost and infertility families. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we are all in this together.